G'day, I'm Ali Amo, and this is the Lease on Life podcast. I'm all about self-awareness. Statistically, 95% of us think we are self-aware. The reality is, only 10 to 15% maximum actually are. One of the reasons that is the case is if you believe you're self-aware, then there's no work to do on yourself to develop or cultivate self-awareness. There's also a lack of methods in order to gain self-awareness. So the ego very quickly makes the decision that you already are, and then there's nothing for you to do. So part of the reason that I created this podcast was to take you on that journey of self-discovery and recovery to achieve the self-mastery and cultivate self-awareness. And the way I do that is through the web of life. In the last episode, I discovered a cycle in my life that I was completely unaware of, and I shared that with you. I call it the can't help myself cycle. But it started as the self-help cycle. It just took a nasty turn because I got too carried away with finding things to help myself and become better and improve in different areas of life, and the struggles in the implementation. So I put it out there to ask people to share with me how this cycle manifests in their lives. I am by far not the only person stuck in this cycle at this current point in time. The feedback I got was quite interesting, and surprisingly, a lot of people knew they did this, but they weren't really aware that they keep doing this, and they're certainly not aware as to why. There was someone in their early 20s who shared with me that they're stuck in the can't help myself cycle and constantly save writing tips, DIY projects, things around the house, things for your room, writing ideas and writing recommendations, reading recommendations, things like that. People in their 30s and 40s, there was a lot of saving videos because they liked the music. So the idea is to go back later and find the song, but they don't really do that. They just keep saving videos because they like the music in them. Interesting. A lot of memory ideas. So when it comes to family events or ideas for activities to do with the family to create good memories. There was destinations to travel to, mostly around the world, but there were also people who saved ideas for local places that they'd like to see, like to try, and like to do for a day out. A lot around food, whether it's recipes for themselves and restaurants to try, was a big one as well. There was a lot of makeup and styling and fashion tips and exercise. So the oldest person was someone in their late 60s, and it was exercise videos. And the comment was, I do this with exercises and I don't know why. And I thought, I'll quickly share with you why you do it and that it's a positive thing in the first place, but it just becomes negative because of the lack of implementation. Interesting that this was the last episode because as we come to the end of the year, if you're listening in real time, one of the biggest problems that people have at the end of the year is thinking about the year to come. Instantly, the idea of New Year's resolution comes to mind. And the statistics on that are almost hilarious because they're kind of sad. So there's a list that's been compiled of the most common. So what I've found looking at that is when it comes to the web of life, a lot of it is relationships, whether it's relationship with the self or the social sphere. So you're looking at your family relationships, and it might be spending more time with family, but in the self sphere, It's not just about relationship. There's also a lot focused around energy, a lot focused on environment as well. So the most common New Year's resolutions: fitness, finance, and mental health stuff. So people are wanting improvement, or they're attempting to implement things to improve, whether that's, there's always a lot of lose weight, quit smoking, eat healthier, exercise more, travel more, save more money, drink less alcohol, obviously, learning new skills and hobbies, sleeping more, reading more, all that kind of thing. So the irony is that around 23% of people have completely given up on their New Year's resolution by the end of the first week of January. By the end of January altogether, around 43% of people have given up on their New Year's resolution. The big one is by March, 80% of people have just totally forgotten about it and moved on with their lives. Well, I wouldn't even say moved on. They've just continued on with their lives exactly as they are. And so when I was reading up and on all the information about this and the statistics behind it and the reasoning behind it, one of the biggest issues was that people haven't really connected with the why behind what they're doing. They have this idea of how they'll be a better person at the end of this year, or the next year, sorry, after they've implemented something new, they've improved something in their lives, but they're not really thinking about why. Another one of the big reasons why people don't commit to their New Year's resolutions is because they aren't ready for a change. Biggest reason, though, that people don't commit is because they're looking at the end result of what they want, but they have no plan put in place for the actual process to go from A to B. They're just like, yep, for next year, it's all about the B. That's what I'm doing. But don't implement any strategies or processes to make that happen. So when I sat back after reading all this information and thought about what's actually happening, what people are trying to do is create a new cycle in their lives, ignoring the cycles that need to be broken for that new one to come in. Even if it's something like sleeping more, exercising more, something that you're already doing, hopefully. In order to do that, there's cycles underneath that you already do that need to be broken in order for there to be a place for you to do that thing more. So if sleeping more is a New Year's resolution for you next year, for example, you need to be looking at first why you're doing this. What what will change in your life? And you need that process in place, right? So to cultivate the awareness within yourself that this is the time that I'm meant to be sleeping, and these are the things that I need to do to help me get into that place. It's just otherwise an idea of what you'd like. It's like somebody saying, I'm quitting smoking, and then they don't do anything to even cut down their smoking. They don't consider when they're smoking, why they're smoking, and remind themselves that they didn't want to do this. You're repeating that cycle that's been in your life for however long, a long time, and you're not really looking at it while it's in operation, and while you're functioning within it, you're not drawing your attention to that to gain the self-awareness you need to be able to do something about it. So it's almost like each year, a high number of people project the idea of self-mastery in some aspect of life, but don't do the self-discovery and self-recovery stuff on the way to be able to achieve the self-mastery and break the cycle, create new cycles, And then that process of the New Year's resolution and the promises that we make to ourselves and to each other that don't get fulfilled, that becomes part of your cycle, or part of a series of cycles that you have. It's almost like the self-help cycle that becomes the can't help myself cycle. The idea in itself, the intention is positive, and the impact that it will have on your life is also positive. But that process in the middle is kind of the most important part, and that's where people fail. And it makes sense that people give up statistically so quickly after the first week, the first month, and by the third month, it's all but forgotten. There's no real process to do it. That's where the web of life becomes your tool. Understanding, even if you just focus for that year, say it's something like sleeping more, you have a better chance of having more sleep and better quality of sleep and the improvements that come from that by the end of the year. If you spend that year just focusing on your sleep cycles, understanding how they work, and developing self-awareness around your sleep cycle to understand how you function within it, how you operate, what are the influences that stop you from having good quality and long-term, long chunks of sleep at least. Regardless of whether you do this for New Year's and create a resolution, or whether you do this naturally throughout the year, you always come to a place in your life where you realize something isn't working for you, and you know what you don't want, and you desire something new and different, or something more of what you already do. If instead of focusing on making that change, knowing that statistically the odds are not in your favor, consider developing your awareness of how you operate and how that cycle functions in your life, so that the next time you come to that realization that that's not working, what you do isn't working, and your life will improve if you do something about this, you have the knowledge of what the experience is, the knowledge that you gained from that experience, how you've integrated it. But what you're looking for mostly are the forms of expression of that cycle, how that cycle manifests in physical form, and start to look at your mental and emotional cycles that run underneath all of this. If you spend a year focusing on that, and you don't need to be dedicated ridiculously, you just need to start to cultivate self awareness just on this one thing. That's enough. And just see how easy it is for you. See how often you have the same experience, the one you're trying to change, and try to reverse engineer it. If you spend the year doing that, by the end of the year, you are far closer to making that your reality than you would be had you just made a resolution and given up the first week, the first month, or by the third, like most people do. So, my challenge to you is, instead of making a resolution, make 2024 the year that you understand that cycle that you want to change. So, you're trying to become the passive spectator in that cycle. Recognize when it's happened, after it's happened for the most part, and see how it works. Then you have a better chance of breaking that cycle at any point in time because you've done the prep work. It's very easy to say, next year I'm going to lose weight. Okay. So have a look at how you eat, when you eat, what you eat, right? For the next year. Start keeping random diaries and you'll get over it. You don't have to do it consistently for the year, but do it for a couple of days here, a couple of days there, whenever you feel like it. Because what I've noticed when it comes to things like that is you censor yourself, even if it's only for yourself. If you do a food diary, you will say you're eating less of the bad stuff You know what I mean? You'll censor yourself and that will show you like you're aware of what you're doing. You become more aware. And when you see it on paper, 6 months later, you're looking at one that you did across 3 days in March and it's now July, and you have a look at things, even if you have sections of food diaries over a period of time, you'll start to see your own cycles. But the idea is not to just look at the what or the when, it's the how and the why. So I don't know if this is a thing, but a food journal to me is less about the diary and this happened at this time and I ate this here and this is what time it was, whatever. I had this much of that. Looking at why you're choosing to eat that and how you came to that decision, because that's how you focus on the mental and emotional cycles. And it's those things, those two are the key to breaking the physical cycle. This is my challenge for you for 2024. Instead of focusing on making a change with your resolution that focuses on the self sphere or the social sphere, cultivate self awareness about the cycles that exist in one area of your life and see how you go with that. At least if you can get through the self discovery side of it, you're a lot closer to self recovery and self mastery. And let's face it, more humans being self aware on this planet, imagine if those statistics were flipped. 95% of people are actually self aware, but only 10 to 15% of people think that they are. Imagine the difference that we'd see on this planet. I believe it would be far more positive if we flip those statistics on its head. And that's what I'm about. So thanks for being here with me for this ep. New ones will come out to you every other Thursday. If you're listening in real time, have a Merry Christmas or a happy holiday season. I hope you embrace the idea of a new year, but you change the way you approach the resolution side of things if that's how you roll. Take it easy, and I'll see you soon.